All right, here we go with our test review. So target 1 is simplifying an algebraic expression, which means we are going to use order of operations to combine like terms. So multiplying and distributing, this is going to give me negative 3xy, and then 3/4 times 8 is going to give me 6 minus xy plus x squared minus 7x. And so now we're looking for like terms. And the only like terms that I'm seeing are negative 3xy and negative 1xy, which would be negative 4xy plus 6 plus x squared minus 7x. And those can't be combined any further. Our next problem, we have a couple sets of distribution to do, so I'm going to pretend there's a negative 1 there. I'm going to leave the 4 as is, distributing the negative 1 plus 2x minus 1. Now distributing the negative 3 minus 6x minus 9. And once again, we're going to combine like terms. So I see 2x minus 6x, which is negative 4x. And then 4 minus 1 is 3, minus 9 is negative 6. Moving on to the next target, here we're actually solving an equation. So we have an equal sign that's been put into these, but very similar to start with. So we're going to start by distributing. That would be negative 8 plus 4x minus 8 equals, distribute again, negative 18 plus 6x. I'm going to combine the like terms over here on the left, so negative 8 minus 8 would be negative 16 plus 4x equals negative 18 plus 6x. Now I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. And I'm also going to add 18 to both sides. So over here, negative 16 plus 18 is 2 equals 6x minus 4x is 2x. And if I divide by 2 on both sides, I get x equals 1. This is called a literal equation on number 4 when we solve for a variable. So to get b by itself, I'm going to first subtract a squared. So I have b squared equals c squared minus a squared. And then I'm going to square root both sides. So I get b equals, it's technically plus or minus when you square root both sides, but if you just have the square root, that's okay. All right, moving on to rate of change. So finding the rate of change given a graph, we're going to think rise over run. So if I count this out, I'm doing down 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 2. So negative 4 over 2 would simplify to negative 2. That would be your slope. When you're given 2 points, you use the slope formula. So I'm going to go ahead and label these points as x2 and y2, x1 and y1 as well. And don't forget the slope formula. This would be a good thing to put on your reference sheet if you haven't already. And I'm just filling in this slope formula. So that would be 10 minus a negative 4, which would become a plus. And then the x's, so 6 minus 19. And now I'm going to simplify. So that would give me 14 in the numerator. And then that gives me negative 13 in the denominator. That can't be simplified anymore. Always check to make sure it can't be. And that's the final answer. Onto the second page, we're finding the rate of change once again. So rate of change in an equation, we want to put it in slope-intercept form. So I'm getting y by itself. And I'm going to divide by 3. So the slope-intercept form is negative 1/3 x minus 1. But remember, that doesn't answer the question. The question says, what's the rate of change? What's the slope? So make sure you specifically say it's negative 1/3. Moving on to graphing a linear function. So this first equation is in a standard form. And so you can choose to put it in slope-intercept form if you want to. The other thing you could do is find the x and y intercept. To find the x-intercept, you're going to make y equal to 0. So that's just going to be 0. So 3x equals negative 10. Divide by 3, divide by 3, and you get negative 10 thirds. Now you can, if you could simplify that, you could do that if you also wanted just to throw it in your calculator to get the decimal, because we are going to be graphing, that would work as well. So I'm going to say that's negative 3.3. The y-intercept, we do the exact opposite. We make x equal to 0. So 3 times 0 plus 5y equals negative 10. That's just 0. So 5y equals negative 10. If I divide by 5 on both sides, I get y equals negative 2. So I'm going to graph both these points. So on the x-axis, we were at negative 3.3. On the y-axis, we're at negative 2. So we have 2 points, and so that would be enough to graph. Again, you could just put this in slope-intercept form if you wanted to. On this next one, y equals 3. If y equals a number, that's just a horizontal line. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. The next two questions are asking about these two problems. So I'm going to do a little bit of scrolling here. So in number 10, it says find the domain range x and y intercepts of number 8. So let's do domain and range first. So if we look at number 8, domain is how far to the left and right. If you look, these arrows indicate that it's going to go forever to the left and forever to the right. So we would say all real numbers. I use this funky symbol to say all real numbers. For the range, how far up and down, again, look at these arrows. It's going to go forever up, forever down, so all real numbers. Now I knew this question was coming up, so that's why I actually solved for the x and y intercepts for my method of graphing on number 8. So x-intercept was negative 3.3, so I'm going to say negative 3.30. The y-intercept was negative 2, and so I already did the hard work on that. Doing the same thing for number 9, so I'm going to go ahead and write domain and range, and then we'll look at it. So let's take a look at our line here on number 9. So domain, how far to the left and right? Look at your arrows. How far to the left and right are they going? They're going forever to the left and right, so all real numbers for domain. For the range, how far up and down? Well, these arrows are just pointing left and right. They're not up or down at all. So it's just going to stay at that one y value, so y equals 3. Now for the x and y intercepts, that graph does not touch the x-axis at all, so I'm going to write none. The y-intercept is at that value of 3. We can just see those two from looking at the graph. We didn't have to solve. Now we're going to write the equation of a line given some information. So taking a look at number 10, picking a few points. So remember, I'm thinking y equals mx plus b when I write this. I can figure out what the slope is going down 3 over 3. So the slope is negative 3 over 3 or negative 1. The y-intercept I can see is at negative 3. So putting that information together, I would have y equals negative 1x, or just negative x, minus 3. For this one, it gives us a point and a slope, so I'm going to use point-slope form. So I'm going to remind you of what that is. So remember, this point is x1, y1, slope is m, and I'm just going to fill in that information. So I have y minus a negative 5, so that's going to become plus. The slope is negative 3/2 x minus x1, which is 4. And then if I wanted to put this in slope-intercept form, which let's go ahead and practice, I'm going to distribute the negative 3/2. So -3/2 times -4, that would give me 6. Solving for y to get slope-intercept form, y equals -3/2 x plus 1. This, just for reference, is the point-slope form. All right, target 7, we're going to solve this linear inequality and then graph our answer on the number line. So I'm going to start by just solving. I'm going to leave everything the same. Oop, -1. On the left, I'm going to distribute on the right. So that would be -6n minus 12 minus 5. So combining like terms over there on the right, -12 minus 5 would be -17. So I'm going to add 6n over here, combining those terms. And I'm going to add 1 while I'm at it as well. So over here I have -2n left, and then I have -16. Divide by -2. I am dividing by a negative, so I do need to switch the sign, and that would be a +8. So I'm going to find 8 on the number line. I'm going to put an open point there because it's not including 8. There's no equal to, and it says it's greater than 8. So we're going to go to the right. Graphing linear inequalities. So we have y is less than 2. So the equation y equals 2 would be a horizontal line at 2. And since it says y is less than, we're going to shade below. If you wanted to use a test point, such as 0, 0, you would just plug in the test point for y since we don't have an x, and 0 is less than 2, so you would shade below like I did. On 14, our inequality actually isn't in slope-intercept form, so I'm going to put it in slope-intercept form to start with. So I have -y is less than or equal to -4x minus 1. And then I'm going to have to divide by a -1. And I'm dividing by a negative, so remember to switch your sign. So that's +4x plus 1. So this is what I'm graphing in slope-intercept form. A y-intercept of 1, a slope of 4. Make sure you're going uphill when you do that. This is going to be a solid line. Oop, I just realized on the last problem, hopefully you caught this, I did not do a dotted line, so let's fix that real quick because it's not equal to. Hopefully you caught that. And then it says y is greater than, so we're going to shade above this line. If you wanted to use a test point, such as 0, 0, you would plug in 0 for x, 0 for y in that equation, actually in either of the equations. And it says 0 is greater than or equal to 1, which is not true, which is why we shaded the opposite side. And then we have our two word problem targets on the back. 15 says Bill mows the lawn in the summer. He gets paid $10 per lawn he mows and mows up to 20 yards a week. What's the domain and range of Bill's weekly lawn mowing hours and income? So he gets paid $10 a week. So remember, we start with an equation. That equation is going to be y equals 10x. X, in this case, would be the number of lawns, because he gets paid $10 per yard, or $10 per lawn. And then y would be the amount of money he's making. So when we talk about domain, we're talking about x, which is the number of yards. So he can mow up to 20. So if he can mow up to 20, that means he can mow all the way down to 0. It doesn't say he has to mow any yards. It's included. And it goes up to 20. For the range, the amount of money he makes, he's not going to make any money. If you plug in a 0 to your equation, he's not going to make any money if he doesn't do any work. Remember to use y. And then if he mows 20 yards at $10 a yard, he can make up to 200 bucks. Now number 10, so this is going to be an inequality. You have budgeted $92 a month to spend on art classes. The art studio charges a $17 per month membership fee plus $12 per class attended. We're first going to write an inequality and solve it. Oops. and equality. And then we're going to write the domain and range. So let's start with an expression. So it says $12 per class. So that's going to be your slope. That $17 you have to pay every month no matter if you take any classes or not. And the amount we spend has to be less than or equal to our budgeted amount. So now we're going to solve this equation. So I'm going to start by subtracting 17 from both sides. So I have 12x less than or equal to 75 divided by 12. We get x is less than or equal to, 6.25. So remember, you can't just pay for 0.25 of a class. You're either taking 6 or 7 classes. So we're going to have to cap it off at 6 classes. So you technically could take 0 classes, but we can only go up to 6 to stay within budget. The range is going to be how much we're going to spend. If we don't take any classes, we still have that $17 per month membership fee. And if we take all 6 classes, sorry if you can hear the announcements behind me, that would be $89, which is within your budget of $92. So that is your test review. Study hard, do your reference sheet. You'll be great.